Hey, thank you for clicking on episode number 21, where we help you understand supplements better, specifically targeting your performance and your recovery. There's so much information out there, some good and some bad on supplementation, and we just want to help you this episode understand what is scientifically proven to help you with your performance, as well as will help you recover so that you can perform better the following day, the following practice, the following game. We get into nootropics and stuff for brain health, on things to help your body recover, as well as your nervous system, as well as hormonal supplementation. So stick around, please enjoy this episode, and I hope it helps you perform better and recover optimally. All right, we are live on Facebook, episode number 21.
Ooh, we can drink now. Let's go.
21. We are of age. If we were playing blackjack, we would be winners. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Coach Sean, welcome to episode number 21. How are you?
Hey, I'm fantastic. How are we doing?
Very good, very good. I like talking about supplements. I've had a good amount of experience with them, and so today we're going to talk about um, what supplements can give you an unfair advantage. What supplements can help you just give you that edge, give you that slight edge, because sometimes it's just razor thin. The extra level you need to beat your opponent. So we're going to talk about supplements and what type of unfair advantage over your opponent you can have with these. Sean, we normally talk about training. I'm going to throw a curveball at you. We hadn't talked about it. What do you like, and what do you use supplementation wise in your own training in your own life?
That's a great question. So there's probably five major supplements that I use for my performance, and then there's a few supplements that I use for managing my lifestyle.
Yeah.
So the performance supplements that I truly believe in, protein, obviously it's one of the biggest ones I use. Carbohydrate powder. And then as far as like exercise aids or ergogenic aids, I'm looking at caffeine, creatine, and maybe some beta alanine or some citrulline malate if I really need a big
Yeah.
boost. But outside of those, there's not too many that I would go to for performance. And then I think in my daily life, I supplement with a glucosamine sulfate for joint health. I've had numerous joint surgeries and broken
Yeah.
bones, so I like those. And then I take a fish oil to make sure I get my omega fatty acids, my EPA and DHA. And then I'm taking a magnesium sulfate, make sure I'm getting those good vitamins. And I think I take, vitamin D as well.
Cool. You were doing collagen for a while too, right?
Oh, thank you for reminding me. I recently started up the collagen regimen. I just throw it in my protein shake, get a little extra collagen protein.
Yeah.
I started taking that when I tore my pec. And I feel like that helped the recovery quite a bit. So
That's the
I was
only
a
reason
fan.
I remember that is you tore your pec and you started taking collagen. So.
Yeah, it was good. So I've added that back into my shakes. I'm probably taking that like every other day.
Cool.
But
Cool.
yeah, my fish oil, vitamin D, magnesium, and my glucosamine is about. Oh, and I take a vegetable supplement.
Cool. Like
It's like
is it a powder or a pill?
it's powderized. It's a food. It's whole food, but it's powderized and it's in like a gel cap. So it's
Cool.
Juice Plus.
Yeah.
I've been on that for a long time. It just helps me kind of close the gap on veggies. I know I'm not getting as much out of it, so I still try and include it into my food.
Yeah.
But I get a little bit of those phytonutrients and some of those micronutrients.
I've used Juice Plus in the past. I'm a big fan of greens powders.
Yeah.
I've heard some people say the magic number of vegetable servings a day is 10.
Ah,
With as good as I eat, I don't even come close to 10 servings of vegetables.
right.
But I do eat a bunch. But so, yeah, like you said, to close that gap, I'm a big fan of greens powder. As for me, I do a lot of rotation, and there's not necessarily a rhyme or reason, other than I'm thinking like, hey, I haven't done that in a while. Um, Vitamin D, for example, I do now because it's
Mhm.
winter, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. I don't do it during the summer. Omega 3s, I'm doing pretty heavy right now. I'm not taking magnesium right now, but I will be getting back on it soon. Those are my big ones. And since we're talking about performance today, the ones I've used in the past, and again, I like to rotate through them. I'm a big fan of alpha GPC, which we'll talk about. I'm a big fan of acetyl L-carnitine, not just L-carnitine, but acetyl L-carnitine. I'm a big fan Oh gosh, of caffeine, like you said, I normally have a little espresso cup here. I'm drinking on the shows. I'm a big fan of caffeine. Gosh, what else do I take? Beta alanine is another one that I cycle in with my workouts for performance wise. So those are just some of the ones that I take, and I've taken a bunch. I have um, a pill box that has 9 compartments, and I have had that filled up with extras, just not having space for those. So I've taken 10 to 15 supplements at a time.
And
Now I'm taking 3. So
yeah,
yeah, just
keep
kind
it
of
simple.
through. Cool. I want to start today. I want to go through and talk about the foundation, if you don't mind. I'm going to kind of kick that off. And for those of you who are watching, go back to a couple episodes ago where we really break down the foundation supplements. But I want to just break them down here because this is a supplement episode. So we're going to talk about performance and recovery, but there are sort of building blocks, and it's just like building a house. Like if you have a bigger, stronger foundation, you can build a taller, stronger house. And the foundational supplements are really important because they are the building blocks of essentially every cell in your body. So, and what I'm talking about is vitamin D, magnesium, uh, and omega 3s, and a multivitamin, multimineral. So we're going to go super quick because, again, you can go back and check prior episodes about this. There's a vitamin D receptor site on every cell in your body. Okay, so it affects everything that you do. It's the sunshine vitamin, as people call it. We don't get vitamin D during the winter, basically right now, throughout most of the world in the winter because there's no UVB rays. So we need to supplement with it. Helps the immune system. That's why flu season happens around this time of year because it's lack of vitamin D season, I like to call it. But vitamin D plays a role in muscle and strength. Lack of vitamin D will increase your injury risk. Like I said, it enhances the immune system. It decreases your chance of illness all around. And then I'm going to read this. A study of pro football players, the average vitamin D level of those who experienced an injury was 19.9. The black players on the team were more likely to be deficient and more likely to be injured. We covered that in our last episode, but the darker your skin is, the more basically repellent of the sun you are, so you won't absorb as much vitamin D. Same thing goes for people who are in the north. So those of you in Norway and Finland and Sweden, all those countries, you're not going to get as much vitamin D. Vitamin D levels are associated with muscular power. It's been found that vitamin D increases size and strength of type 2 muscle fibers. Vitamin D is essential for optimal testosterone. Okay, we need testosterone, men and women, for various functions of the body, but definitely for performance. And vitamin D can help with losing weight as well. So a lot of benefits to D. In terms of magnesium, almost every athlete is deficient in magnesium. Again, we covered that in depth before, but magnesium is necessary for energy metabolism and physical performance. There's a study from 2011 that showed sedentary men who received 10 milligrams of magnesium per kilogram of body weight a day. Well, let's just go through blah, 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 blah. It studied Taekwondo athletes. When you pair magnesium with exercise, your testosterone levels go up. Okay, so if you're not optimizing magnesium, you're putting your peak performance. You're leaving that on the table. You're leaving opportunity for gains. You're leaving opportunity for development, for performance. Magnesium is also very important at regulating cortisol. It's going to regulate your stress. It's going to help you sleep and recover. Fish oil, omega 3s. They're called essential fatty acids because we do not get them in our diets, or we do not get them internally, endogenously. We need to get them in our diets. Okay, so they're essential. Every cell in your body has a lipid layer. It's surrounded by lipid. It's surrounded by fat, right? What fats you eat determine that lipid layer, determines the health of your cells, essentially. And so we don't want the high omega 6s, high omega 9 diets and processed foods and things like that. Trans fats. We want good, healthy fats. Omega 3s give us those. Omega 3s, again, will help to create a healthy lipid layer around every cell in your body. That will help improve your insulin sensitivity, which will help body fat regulation. It will help your blood sugar keep you healthy long term. The mTOR pathway, MTOR pathway that produces muscle growth is enhanced by as much as 30% when we optimize our omega 3s. And then the fourth one I want to talk about is zinc. Okay. Adequate zinc directly affects athletic performance and strength development from training because it plays a primary role in hormone production. Okay, so it improves testosterone, it improves growth hormone, it improves insulin-like growth factor 1, IGF-1. All right. This study says a recent study highlights the boost that raising zinc levels can give to testosterone production following exercise. Researchers found that giving trained athletes a zinc supplement for 4 weeks prior to an exhaustive exercise test resulted in a greater post-workout testosterone response than a placebo. So we need zinc for a lot of reasons. One of the biggest reasons, besides immune boosting, helping us stay healthy, is it really aids in testosterone production. And if we're really trying to be healthy, if we're really trying to perform at our peak, and if we're really trying to recover our best, we need zinc. Those are my kind of quick, foundational tips. A multivitamin, multimineral is also great. Sean said he takes a greens product. I enjoy greens products. I think they're good. But most of our diets, even if they're 100% spot on, there's some gaps. It's like having a 1,000-piece puzzle and there's a few pieces missing. And I like to say multivitamins, multiminerals, they kind of fill in those gaps. And they give us some folate, they give us different B vitamins, they give us different, depending on the product, different minerals and such that we may miss in our diets. So vitamin D, omega-3, magnesium, zinc, and a multivitamin, those are my base foundational supplements. And if you want optimal performance and you want to recover, then we need those. Comment below vitamin D if you have a question about when you should take these supplements. I'll be happy to respond. So comment below vitamin D, whether you're watching on Facebook Live now or YouTube later, and I'll be happy to answer those questions. Sean.
Yes, sir.
That was a quick one. That was a blazing through.
That was great. I don't have too much to add.
Okay, not too much to add. You mind if I jump into protein powder?
Let's get it.
Okay. So, this is a basic one, and I have to put it in here because I think the very first thing that like every athlete I train, they're like, do I need to take a protein powder? I'm sure you've heard that 1,000 times.
I considered it into my my performance supplements. I mean, protein it's a supplement. It's an addition to your standard diet. So absolutely.
And what you just said is really important because the basis for our intake needs to be real food. It needs to be food first. It needs to be real food second. Ideally, it's as clean as possible, whatever you can afford, whatever is available in your area. Again, there's like 50 countries in this group represented. So, some countries don't even need to label organic, non-GMO. They just have good, clean food,
Yeah.
But we need, 100 years ago, there was no such thing because everything was that way. But organic, non-GMO, wild-caught fish, free range, all of these modifiers, as clean a food as you can get. But even still, most athletes are not getting the protein requirements that they need. We've talked about this in prior episodes. Essentially, what we want is 1.6 to 2 grams per kilo of body weight. Okay, so if you weigh 100 kilos, 200. All right, just multiply it by 2. If we're talking in pounds, multiply your body weight times 1. So I'm about 220 pounds. I try to get 220 grams of protein a day. That's a lot of food when you look at how much it is. So I take one protein shake a day, sometimes 2. But again, they are, I have a solid breakfast, I have a solid lunch, I have a solid dinner. Then there's that extra protein shake, sometimes a second one, depending on the proteins in my meals. So how much protein can we eat? Let's talk there first. Most of the research says 35, 40 grams is about all that the human body can tolerate in one sitting. I know a lot of people, a lot of coaches, they recommend more, 50, 60, 80 gram protein shakes post-workout. I think that's a little too much. I think you're wasting a little bit of it. I personally take about 45 because I factor in the leaky gut, the intestinal permeability. I may lose some, in the process of digesting it. So I go a little bit above 45, sometimes 50 grams of protein. With your protein powders, it's so important, in my opinion, to avoid the ones that have artificial sugars and artificial sweeteners in them. I'm a 100% opposed to sucralose, asulfame potassium, aspartame, all of these bad sugars, high fructose corn syrup. These are all really bad on your body. There's some people in the sports field that are like, oh, they're fine. I disagree. I don't want anything artificial in my body. So what I take a grass-fed beef protein powder. Now, before you think, oh, that's really gross, why would you do beef protein? It's a protein powder just like anything else, um, but it's hypoallergenic. So most people aren't allergic to beef. So it's a hypoallergenic protein. There are many people that are allergic to dairy or sensitive to dairy.
Soy.
Yeah, so most protein sources, especially if we're talking in the athlete realm, are whey, and whey is a derivative of dairy, of usually cow's milk, as well as casein. Casein is another one that you see that is usually made from dairy, from milk. Both totally fine protein sources if you're okay with dairy, but I personally am not, and so I prefer a grass-fed beef protein. Grass-fed makes it just a little bit cleaner. Let's see. So let's talk about protein powder a little bit more. Oh, comment protein below if you want a discount for the same grass-fed beef protein that I use, and I will be happy to get it to you. I have that ability. Yeah. Sean, you want?
I'll take one.
Yeah, for sure. I'll get it over to you. But yeah, I use a website. It's really great. You can customize your protein powder, and you can add in the different sweeteners. You can add in different boosts and things like that. You can make it a ratio, whatever type of protein you want. They have like 30 different options. It's great. But I just go straight grass-fed beef protein. A lot of people talk about an anabolic window. Sean, have you heard this? Like post-workout?
Absolutely. Yep.
Anabolic window. I've heard both sides of the story. I've heard, the newbies, the people who don't train or haven't trained for, a long time. They're going to have that kind of anabolic window post-workout, whereas someone like me that's been training for almost 20 years, that anabolic window kind of doesn't exist. But I still do a protein powder post-workout. Okay.
Yeah.
After intense exercise, after an intense basketball game, your muscles are craving amino acids and glucose. Okay. They're craving some carbohydrates and they're craving some protein. So Sean later is going to talk about a carbohydrate powder, but I like that protein post-workout pretty immediately. The research I've seen is literally the last weight's down, go change, put your clothes on. Within 10 minutes, you're chugging a protein powder. That's what I like personally. Again, I do about 45 grams. It needs to be a clean source, no artificial sugars, no artificial sweeteners. Whey is really popular because it is so fast acting in the body. All right. I think beef's very similar in that effect. There's a lot of vegan, vegetarian protein powders out there. They are not as bioavailable. They do not absorb in your body as well as the dairy and as the beef. Now, Sean, you said, was it a couple weeks ago, which one do you think, or did you say is the best at absorption in terms of the vegan? Was it rice?
Pea protein has the quickest absorption rate of the vegan protein. And then some people in that category are also intolerant to soy. So sometimes a lot of the vegan proteins will either be soy or there'll be pea protein, but pea protein is probably that next highest absorption rate, but it is thick. You need to mix and cut that with quite a bit of water.
Yeah. I like to tell guys in case you don't want to think you need to be wearing a purse when you go out, or you decide you want to put on high heels, then don't eat soy, because soy will boost your estrogen levels. Soy is a xenoestrogen. Guys, we don't want that in our bodies whatsoever. Even women, you should really avoid it. Soy protein is not something that you want to use. It can be detrimental to your health. It can damage your testosterone levels because it boosts your estrogen levels. There's a lot of things we don't want uh, to happen in our bodies that can happen if you eat soy on a regular basis. I feel like man, I just raced through that, but I feel like I hit kind of the big points on protein. Sean, did I miss anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in a little bit more on the anabolic window. I've got some info. I know you like to go protein only. I'll talk a little bit more on why carbohydrates are important. But for
Well,
you, you
that's
said the
let me
newbies.
cut you off. I actually do like carbs for certain populations.
Okay,
Um, if someone is in a fat loss protocol, then typically I have them avoid carbs for about an hour to an hour and a half after workout. Yeah.
for sure. So we talked quite a bit, ran through quite a bit of things on there. So the anabolic window, does it exist? Does it not exist? We know that if we're doing any sort of weight training, we are getting protein degradation. We are putting our body in a state of catabolism. So you have anabolism and catabolism. Catabolism is the breakdown of your body nutrients, and then anabolism is the growth of those nutrients. So we know that we're catabolic after a workout. So having something in your system very close to after your workout can help reverse some of the catabolism and start kickstarting the cycle for anabolism, protein synthesis, and muscle glycogen resynthesis. So the protein powder after our workout is going to be super valuable for increasing the anabolism and generating protein synthesis. And the reason that I like a carbohydrate powder along with the protein powder is you get muscle glycogen resynthesis. It's almost
Right.
3 to 4 times faster with carbohydrate to your protein as opposed to the protein by itself. So if you're someone who trains on consecutive days, this is where I like this. If you work out back-to-back days, you're going to want to add a carbohydrate powder to your workout, your post-workout shake, or however you get it. But that's going to help you regenerate the fuel sources in your muscles and in your bloodstream faster. So if you're doing back-to-back workouts or back-to-back training sessions, I definitely like to have a carbohydrate powder mixed in. Post-workout timing, kind of like you said, Phil, outside that anabolic, catabolic breakdown window, you just need to make sure you have enough protein. Probably more trained people will have that resource available to them as their body starts going through
Right.
protein synthesis. But as far as carbs, post workout, looking at like 0.5 grams to maybe 1 gram of kilograms. So 0.5 to about 1 kilo of body weight is in a post workout shake. So I think that for me, that ends up being about 40, 50, maybe 60 grams post workout.
Yeah.
And then for protein, about 0.4 to 0.75 grams per kilo body weight post workout. So for me, that ends up being like, again, kind of 30, 40. So my post workout shake, I'm about 30, 40 protein, about 40, 50 carb. So there's definitely a higher carb ratio, but I'm trying to work out on consecutive days, get that muscle glycogen resynthesis. So I like having that together.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, and that's the reason I don't like carbs with someone who's really focused on fat loss because I want to keep their muscle glycogen depleted,
Yeah,
which can aid the fat loss. But yeah,
that's a really good point. So it's really population dependent. If you're a sport athlete or a competitive athlete or someone who's training back-to-back days, the carbohydrate post workouts can be good for you. If you're
yeah,
someone watching this who's probably more of a fitness, more of a fat loss client, we definitely want to reduce the carb intake, increase the fat metabolism, and get those burning as often as possible.
and you make a really good point because there are so many athletes and you basketball players that are watching this, man. Firsthand. I remember it firsthand going throughout the season and getting on the scale every now and again, being like, "Dang, I was 190, now I'm 185." And then 2 months later, you're like, "Dang, I'm 180. What's going on?" And you lose 10, 15 pounds. You lose 8 kilos during a basketball season. Um, you're not eating enough calories. And so what Sean's saying is spot on. And I remember a couple of clients I've had as high as 80 grams of protein and 200 grams of carbs post workout, just
Yeah,
in
yeah,
one shake. Because they're 6'9", they're 6'10", they're 240, 50, 80 pounds. Like they're big people. They need a lot of calories. And after that workout, man, let's assume the anabolic window exists. That's a great time to put them in your body because they're just gonna. I like the hungry hippos analogy. If you guys remember that little kids game where hungry hippos go out and they grab the white marbles and they pull them in. That's what your muscles are doing. They're just like reaching out like anything they can get to grab and to pull in. That's
Hmm.
funny, man. Like my hand gets real big. Uh, and so you want those amino acids. You want that glycogen, that glucose. Sorry, um, in your muscles. That's man. I love it, Sean.
And then since we're kind of on that post-workout topic real quick,
Yeah,
that I almost have my post-workout shake sometimes at like the last quarter of my workout. And I
yeah.
sometimes if I'm doing heavy squats, that extra carbohydrate boost gives me I feel like I digest that almost within a few minutes. And I'm like, my next set, I have a little bit more energy. So I know some people that take that post-workout shake almost towards the end of their workout while they're still training. I know some people take it intra-workout, like Gatorade or some sort of carbohydrate powder, like during the workout if you got an intense bout. But I want to talk a little bit more about post-exercise meal. So if you have your post-workout shake, I'm looking usually for about a meal in the next 2 hours or so,
Yep.
with very dense, high-quality carbs and very lean meat. What you don't want to do post-workout is have a very fatty meal.
Yep.
What that's going to do is that's going to slow down the digestion of the carbohydrate and the protein, and that's going to slow down your synthesis and your reuptake. So the fat literally slows it all down. So we want to have our fats on the outside of our workout and all our carbs before and after our workout. So that's how we kind of plan it. But post-workout meals, 2 hours after, very carb heavy, very protein heavy, very lean meal.
What I tell people is just bookend your days. Have fat at breakfast and fat at dinner. You're usually pretty good, you know.
If you're training in the middle of the day, for sure.
Right, right.
If someone trains at night, I'm saying breakfast and lunch are probably pretty fat heavy. Your afternoon is picking up your carbohydrates. Your pre-workout meal and your post-workout meal end up being your carb meals. But that's sometimes someone done at the gym at 7-8 p.m. at night. They're getting and that's where the whole adage of like, hey, don't eat carbs after 6 gets really confusing, because it doesn't matter when you eat your carbs throughout the day timeline. It matters when you eat your carbs throughout your exercise timeline.
Well, and that's a good point. And a lot of these folks are, you know, playing basketball in the night. So, you know, you get done with your game, you shower, you know, get to the car, the bus, the plane, whatever you're traveling on, and by the time you eat, it could be 10, 11 o'clock, and but you're
And that
still
needs to be a carb heavy meal.
it needs to be a carb heavy meal. You're still post workout. And what people don't realize too, I'm a big fan of carbs at night. You know, you made that comment, and it's really popular and common in the industry to not have carbs, you know, after X time during the day. But remember, carbs, so insulin and cortisol are inversely related. So typically we want cortisol low in the evening. So after a game, you know, you're amped up, your nervous system, everything's, you know, on. You're stressed. Your cortisol's up. You want to increase your insulin so that cortisol comes down. That's the whole concept behind comfort food. When you're stressed, you crave cake, you crave ice cream, you crave sugar, so that your body can just be like, oh, I feel so good, because that cortisol has dipped because you just jacked up your insulin. So I'm a big fan, especially like you said, after that game, man, crush carbohydrates. I mean, as much white rice as you can get in the body, as much
Yeah,
berries and fruit, you know.
I
Do you want to go
do.
on? Go ahead.
Yeah, let's go on. I guess since we talked about post-workout, I just want to make a quick note on pre-workout
Yeah,
nutrition.
yeah, yeah.
You want to make sure pre-workout that you're getting your carbs 2 hours beforehand, so they have time to digest. Because what happens, the way insulin works is when you get a surplus of carbohydrate, you get an increase of insulin. Insulin's job is to remove sugar from the bloodstream and store it. So we want to eat either 2 hours earlier so my body has time to remove the insulin and store it before my workout. Because what happens is if your body is trying to remove insulin and store insulin because of the high carb meal, and then you start working out, we call it the insulin double whammy, where I'm losing blood sugar from the training, but I'm also losing blood sugar from the spike of insulin I gave my body an hour ago.
Right.
So if you eat 2 hours pre with a big carb meal, then you give your body time to digest and take those nutrients, store them. If you're gonna eat within that 2 hour window, you need to make sure that you are continuously snacking up to training so that you don't get the giant insulin spike. Small snack. So basically, if you spike the insulin with a meal about an hour out, you're
Yeah.
going to want to have something probably 30 minutes out to make sure the carb levels stay balanced so that you don't have that insulin spike, which drops your blood sugar. So at that point, if you can't help it and you need to eat an hour before your game or 30 minutes before your game, you're going to want to try and maintain the blood sugar levels so that you don't get a giant spike in insulin and drop the blood sugar. So that's like a really kind of nuanced topic. But sometimes you feel like shit before a game and you had just eaten an hour prior. That's probably why.
Yeah.
Krispy Kreme does a donut challenge where they make you eat donuts throughout a run. And it's a really short run, but it jacks you up bad because of this insulin spike from all the sugar in the donuts.
Have
So
you heard of beer mile?
it's the same concept, right?
Yeah.
So you get tons of extra carb that just sits and pulls, and you got two insulin and the training is pulling out that blood sugar. So if you feel like you just dumped energy, it's probably where what happened.
Well, and don't forget too, the blood, goes to the digestive tract to aid in digestion. So, you're also not
Pulling it out of your limbs.
Yeah, you're not allowing your muscles of your legs and arms and torso to have oxygen because the blood isn't circulating as well. Um, let's see, Sean, before we go on to creatine, then you're going to talk about, we have a question from Nikos. We must have our considering on glycogen productivity, if I am right. I don't know what that means. We must have our considering on glycogen. We must consider glycogen productivity. I think that's what he's asking, Sean. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, when we consider the productivity, is that you talking about like because we're talking pre and post workout carbohydrate uptake. That's kind of where we're maintaining and considering our carbohydrate or our glycogen stores.
I talked about a couple days ago. Well, go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, I think I'm just trying to understand the question.
Yeah, I if I understand it correctly, yeah. I talked about this a couple episodes ago, but the carbohydrates we eat post workout do a really good job at replenishing our glycogen for the next workout session, next game, the next day, that sort of thing. Glycogen replenishment isn't a short window, it's about a 24-hour window. So it's another big reason, like what Sean said, why we need post-workout carbohydrates, because we just totally depleted the levels, and we want to replenish those levels because we want to have a good workout tomorrow. We want to play well on the basketball court again tomorrow. So we got to replenish glycogen. Then, if that's not the question, Nikos, please elaborate. And then Mustafa asked, is the supplements is very necessary for basketball players, or the good nutrition is enough for them? Yeah, so good nutrition, in quotes, I'm putting myself, because, what is good nutrition, Mustafa? If I asked you what it was, you might give me a different, definition of good nutrition than what I would say, even than what Sean would say. But the general answer that I tell people is no, your nutrition is usually not good enough because our soil is depleted. So even you eat, organic spinach with
ours is. I don't know about theirs.
organic spinach with grass. Yeah, I don't know what country you are. Mustafa, I think I talked to you the other day. I think you might be from Egypt, which I've been to Egypt. I love the food in Egypt. It was the first time I was playing basketball with a traveling team. We played the Egyptian national team in a series of exhibitions, 2 in Cairo, 1 in Alexandria, and I was 22 years old, and it was the very first time I was served fish with the actual whole fish on the plate, and the thing just came to me, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? We're so used to just having a nice piece of filet, but anyway, I've since really enjoyed eating fish that way, but that first time was eye-opening with that fish eyeballs just looking back at me on the plate. I don't think nutrition, I don't think food is enough. I think because I didn't talk about it today, but when you perform high intensity exercise, whether it's basketball or weight training, you deplete yourself of magnesium, you deplete yourself of zinc, you deplete yourself of things that you basically can't eat enough of to replenish the amount that you need because you're using so much of it internally. So that's why I think magnesium is so important for basketball players. I think, Omega-3 fish oil, if you're not consuming a lot of fish, is important. I think vitamin D during the winter is important, or if you have darker skin, it's important. So there are some supplementation that I think are basic foundational stuff you need. And then, yeah, we're going to get into right now some of the more performance-based stuff. Sean, go ahead.
I mean, now you literally just made the segue for me. I was gonna add on your question. You
Yeah.
said sometimes your diet isn't enough, and you added a lot of the things we get through our diet. There's certain performance enhancers that we don't get through our diet, which I was gonna say, like the caffeine, maybe the amount of creatine that we might need, or some of the stuff that we were gonna talk about, like beta alanine or any of those like nitric oxide boosters. So
Yeah.
if you want the edge, there's things that you can take additional to your diet that are gonna have a performance enhancing effect.
Yeah.
I think that kind of leads us right into caffeine. What do you think?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sweet. So caffeine is one of those things, right? Caffeine is one of those. It is the most studied ergogenic aid or performance enhancer in scientific studies. So they've been studying caffeine, I want to say probably since the 40s, 50s. We have tons and tons of research on caffeine. What it does, it increases fat metabolism. It decreases perceived effort of a task. So when you're doing something, the task feels easier for you. It decreases pain by increasing your beta endorphins by double the amount. So it's easier for you to complete the task. We know that it's not only for endurance athletes, but also for speed and power athletes. We're looking at a 3 to 5% performance in strength and power. We're looking at an increased time to fatigue. So even if you're a marathon runner, you can run longer before you're fatigued. So caffeine is one of those things. It's a beautiful thing in the body. You can get accustomed to it, but basically what it does is it blocks the feedback signals from the body to the brain that send signals of fatigue, that you're tired. So it blocks those signals, so the brain doesn't realize that your body's fatigued, that it's tired. So it keeps inputting those performance signals. So we're increasing our time to fatigue and our strength and power outputs.
Yeah.
Increased speed, increased sprint repeatability, 3% improvement in peak power, peak force, increased reaction time, decreased fatigue. So caffeine is one of those things you can't really replicate. That's why pre-workouts are such a booming industry. It's everyone pre-workout do you take? And they're all caffeine based. That's the number one component of the pre-workout. So if you skip all the extras and you want some coffee pre-game, pre-training, that might be a good resource for you. The recommended dose is between 3 and 6 milligrams per kilo of body weight. So if you want to run that route, try those out. Start low, increase your dosage, but definitely do it in training before you do it in a game, because you want to make sure you're used to whatever effects you have while you're playing a game. Don't ever try something new.
So if you're 100 kilos, that's 300 to 600 milligrams of caffeine. That's a pretty big cup of coffee.
It's probably 2 or 3 cups. You get about 80 milligrams per cup of coffee. Yeah. So the average pre-workout dose, the one single serving, if you go to the store, you buy their pre-workout off the shelf, you're looking at between 200 and 400 milligrams per scoop. So depending on the one you get. And then there's a tolerance thing, right? So the more you take, the more you get used to, so the more you need. So definitely vary and waive your caffeine so you don't get too used to it.
And I'm a big fan of coffee post-workout. I'm a big fan of coffee post-games. I know a lot of the research, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, isn't it around green tea? They use green tea more so in studies?
Most of what I see is like lab-created caffeine. It's more like, hey, try this caffeine powder we synthesized.
Yeah. I like to tell people if you're sensitive to caffeine, you've probably tried coffee. I would go towards the green tea route. Green tea has L-theanine in it, and L-theanine helps to process caffeine. So people who are sensitive to coffee, it might be beneficial to switch to green tea just for the sake of getting that L-theanine, which helps to process the coffee. But do you like supplements, Sean, for caffeine, or you just drink some coffee? Just throw back.
I'm lazy, so I buy a supplement off the shelf. I rotate what I get. One that I really like is Optimum Nutrition on ON Performance. They got an amino energy that I really enjoy. It's just amino acids and caffeine, so it's really simple. There was a point in time where I was creating my own pre-workouts. I would buy powdered caffeine, I'd buy beta alanine, I'd buy citrulline malate, and I'd buy like a unflavored and then I'd mix it up, I'd get my doses accurate, and it took too much time. So I kind of I did that for about a year or two, and I was like, man, I'd throw beetroot juice in there sometimes, and I would get all sorts of creative with it. But it took a while, and it was strenuous. So it's totally an option. But right now I'm lazy, so I just buy the pre-workout.
I must be really lazy then, because I just hit the button on my espresso machine and chug a few espressos. Do you drink coffee?
Yeah, I drink coffee most mornings. I just have one cup. It's not an espresso or anything. I just like the way it tastes.
My mother-in-law, when me and my wife got married about 5 years ago, they bought all four of their kids. Their wedding gift was a really nice espresso machine, and so
Oh,
um, that was a life changer for us. Because I mean, I just had a shot of espresso 30 minutes before our show, before workouts, before anything like that. It's
yeah,
espresso.
espresso gets you right. It's probably about 120 milligrams right there.
I think a double shot. Yeah, I think one shot's 60 to 75 milligrams, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So I do
So
three in my morning coffee.
yeah, caffeine's great. I know a lot of people they do coffee, they do
Yeah,
teas, pre-workout. It's a little cleaner, a little more natural.
yeah,
So there's definitely options. But caffeine, again, one of those things you can't get in diet. So
right.
if you want to really boost, that's one of the most studied ever. It's just, hey, this thing helps. Like, here's what it is.
Oh, love it. Can't get enough of it. It's easy. It really is easy. Uh,
Easy.
all right, I'm going to move on. Let's go to GPC. So I am big on the brain supplements. So a lot of people, they're thinking supplements. They're thinking weight gainers, mass gainers, other things, whatever. I'm big on nootropics. Nootropics essentially help cognition, help the brain. Um, and when you're trying to recruit as much muscle fiber as possible, like when you're trying to jump as high as you can, when you're trying to run as fast as you can, when you're trying to lift weights and get, 5 reps, and really grind out those last few reps, you really need the neural drive. And so one of the best supplements for neural drive is alpha glycerylphosphorylcholine, or alpha GPC. Um, there is a study that it increases your power output by 14%. So it is a noticeable effect. I'm going to share my screen actually, because I want to show you, for those of you who like to research like I do, examine.com is a,
Oh, I love Examine.
yeah, it's just a brilliant website. It was started by this guy, Kamal Patel. And here's Alpha GPC. You just search for whatever you want. It's an independent third party website on supplements and some nutrition. But Alpha GPC is well, right here. So what I just said here is a 14% increase in power output. And the cool thing is, this website gives you the level of evidence. So depending on how many peer-reviewed journals there are, or if any, it will give you that amount of evidence. And you can click on the studies, which I won't do here, but it increases your power output. Remember, power is explosiveness if you want to look at it that way. They tested it by bench throws, okay? It also improves fat oxidation. It helps you burn fat. And then it ups your growth hormone. This website somewhere talks about, we won't get into, but it also helps to up your acetylcholine and up your dopamine. Okay, so it's going to up your drive. It's going to up that just neurotransmitter, chemical dominant, feeling of, you're in the game, so to speak, as well as help burn fat, as well as, you saw that it decreases the chances of Alzheimer's. Aging folks need alpha GPC. It's really good for the brain. Folks who have ADD, ADHD, all of those, brain development things can really benefit from alpha GPC. But I love it pre-workout. I love it pre-game. 600 milligrams is typically the studied dose, but anywhere from like 300 to 600 milligrams will really help boost your acetylcholine, boost your dopamine. Again, these are neurotransmitters. These are chemicals in the brain. You're going to feel good. You're not going to get jittery like caffeine might make you do. You're not going to get weirded out like some pre-workouts. It's just going to make you feel ready. Go ahead, Sean. You're smiling at some.
I'm smiling because I feel like everything you just described was creatine, which
Nice.
is my absolute favorite ergogenic aid. But I think that's awesome. I didn't know that about GPC, so I'm definitely gonna try and get on that. But I mean, that's a really good segue into my all-time favorite supplement,
Right.
which is creatine. And so a lot of people give creatine a bad rap. They say it's not natural. They say it makes you bloated. They say it gives you muscle cramps. So I'm gonna try and make this a really quick rundown with as much information as possible. But creatine is naturally found in your body. It's an amino acid. It comes from meat that you eat. Most healthy people synthesize and digest about 2 grams of creatine a day. So we already get it naturally. And so what is creatine and how does our body use it? Creatine is a food source. It's a fuel source for your body for energy production. So we know that we have carbohydrates, we have fats, and we have proteins that we can use as fuel. Creatine is the little guy over here that nobody talks about, but is still a kind of like a macronutrient fuel source. It's very quick energy. It's responsible for about 10 to 15 seconds worth of work. But if you have more creatine in your system, this is the energy system. We've talked in conditioning. We've talked about energy system development. We've talked about the alactic. We've talked about the anaerobic energy system. Creatine is your ultimate fuel for the anaerobic energy system. So creatine decreases lactic acid, decreases lactate, which allows us to push through more fatigability sets, more burning, so we can push harder in our workouts, allowing for more work. So it's carbohydrate sparing. Not only that, but creatine also increases neural drive. So it sends a bigger, stronger, faster signal from your brain to your body, allowing for higher force outputs, higher power outputs. A few things I want to talk about also as far as like what they found in creatine. So research on weightlifters has shown some increases between 20 to 30% 1 RM from taking creatine and not taking creatine. So a 20 to 30% max strength boost, that's huge. Significant increases in explosiveness and power, increased repeat sprint ability, so you can hang on to your power for repeated efforts longer. Increased muscle mass. So if I can work out longer and harder, I can increase my muscle mass, which is usually why that one works. But the fun part about creatine is it is also a cognitive enhancer. So it increases short-term memory. It increases brain functioning. It increases thinking through critical complexes. And so definitely get your grandma on creatine. The creatine is the next most studied ergonomic aid. They've studied it so much and it's so proven for strength and power that they've moved on. Now creatine is being studied and used in elderly populations with rehabilitation. So if an elderly someone falls and they get creatine, it will help them get stronger, help their bone density, and help them also cognitive function. I know I'm kind of ranting a little bit, but I love creatine so much. So creatine is an antioxidant. It stabilizes your cellular membranes and it reduces oxidative stress. And so blueberries, other acai bowls, these are big antioxidants. What antioxidants do is they prevent the oxidation of your cell. When your cell loses electrons, it's being oxidated, it's oxidative being metabolized. So when something is an antioxidant, it stabilizes your cellular wall, allowing your cells to function healthier and not die off. So creatine is an antioxidant. It adds those electrons back to your cell and stabilizes those cells. So really good for cognition, really good for sports performance. There's no definitive evidence for muscle cramping so far in research. There's not any adverse dehydration effects so far in the literature. There's not significant evidence of water retention in the literature. Creatine's been studied since 1927. So we have almost 100 years worth of creatine study with damn near zero side effects. It doesn't have any negative effect on your kidneys. The ISSN, which is the International Society of Sports Nutrition, states that creatine is a healthy supplement to take, and there's no detrimental effects of creatine. So creatine for me is, if you're not taking creatine and you're trying to be a performance or competitive athlete of any sort, you're missing out. It's cheap. It's a 3-month supply is probably $15-$20 American. Yep. The recommended dose is about 5 to 8 grams a day on creatine. Personally, I don't cycle my creatine. I take creatine straight through. I take it like it's food. I don't cycle. Well, I guess I do kind of like your protein. If you
Sleep
get
in it,
30,
you bathe in it, you do. I mean, eat
I
it
do
every
everything with
day.
creatine. If I eat 30 grams of protein in each of my meals, that's a constant number for me. If I have, 300 to 400 grams of carbs a day, that's a constant number for me. So my constant number for creatine is about 5 to 8 grams. If I'm eating tons of red meat, I'm eating lots of meat. It's found in red meat, poultry, pork, and fish. So if you're eating meat, you're getting creatine. So if you eat a lot of meat, you might not need a lot of creatine, but I'm under the impression that, hey, a little bit more won't hurt you.
It's so widely studied and marked as safe. Everybody should be taking it. Who's playing
Get your
bad?
grandma on creatine, literally. Like, she's gonna have a healthier brain. It's more than just a performance supplement. It's a mental cognition enhancer. Like, it helps you with your memory. It helps you with your organizational thought processes, your task repeatability. Like, your efficacy of life goes up if you can think better and perform better. Like, creatine's a no-brainer.
Well, if you don't mind me sharing this, those of you who remember us posting this, remember this ATP PCR, that CR is phosphocreatine system, and basketball is played 60% of the time in that system.
Let's
So,
go.
so if your creatine stores are low, you're not going to perform as optimal in the basketball court. And like Sean said, I mean, it's one of the cheapest supplements out there. If there's a supplement, vitamin D and creatine maybe could be your two, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I went in on creatine right there. So take it.
Yeah,
Five to
and you were talking too. Right when I got done talking about alpha GPC, so I want to say one more thing. So glycerophosphocholene, your body gets deficient in choline as a game goes on. Exercise induces choline use, and so choline is what your body will use to make acetylcholine in the brain. So if you're that player at the end of games where you're kind of looking around and you leave the timeout and you go to your buddy, you're like, hey, what did coach just call? I didn't even, what did he say? Like, you know what I mean? Like you lose it up here. Alpha GPC is important, and Sean, I mean, creatine, it sounds like can do the same thing, right?
Very similar. Yeah, it increases your neural drive very much in a similar way. It allows for a bigger action potential, a more aggressive action potential from the brain to the body that electrical zap your muscles get.
Yeah. So I'm going to be real brief on this next one, electrolytes, and they're really important. We electrolytes, so salt, potassium, or sodium, potassium, chloride, magnesium, but eat food with colored salt, and a lot of the problems go away in terms of hydration. Just drinking water does not mean you're going to be hydrated. Electrolytes help support hydration. That's the whole reason why Gatorade is a probably $1 billion company. Okay, so but they're just loading those drinks with table salt. It's not really a good form. You're still going to get the electrolytes, but I'm a big fan of salting your food to taste, and as long as your salt has color, you can't oversalt your foods. You're going to be low in electrolytes if you're an athlete. You're going to be low in electrolytes if you work out. So you might want to salt your food more. Don't feel bad. Don't vilify salt. It's okay. A problem though is most people oversalt their foods or eat processed foods which are overly salted, and with bad table salt, iodized white salt that doesn't have the mineral content. And so that then becomes a problem because then your salt levels are here and your potassiums are down here. And we need your potassium to be probably higher. And again, I'm making random observations, seeing these levels in lab work and stuff is obviously ideal. Same thing goes back to way early on. We talked about vitamin D. Get your levels checked. We need to be above 30, but ideally we're between 60 to 80 nanograms per milliliter. So 60 to 80 on your lab work. For magnesium and zinc, get your RBC mag and RBC zinc tested. Magnesium just circulating in the blood doesn't necessarily mean we're absorbing it. We want to see what actually gets into the red blood cell. So red blood cell magnesium, red blood cell zinc, that's a way to check to see your levels. Regarding electrolytes, we need about half a liter of water per hour of training. So, you're at a basketball practice, you need to drink a liter, and some of you even more because you're big people. Salt your food. I'm not going to go much more into electrolytes, but definitely I would take some sort of potassium if you're deficient, if you're feeling dehydrated. Go ahead, Sean.
I was just say the primary electrolytes we're looking at are sodium, potassium, calcium, and magnesium. So again, that magnesium supplement comes back into play that way. But electrolytes are how your cells contract. So they basically measure there's sodium and potassium on either side of your cell wall, and when one is inflamed, it sucks the other one in, and vice versa. So your muscles contract and relax through cellular wall communication and transporting of of sodium, potassium. But what happens is if they're at an imbalance, the muscles don't contract the same way. That's why you end up getting cramps and things like that, because now there's an influx on one side of the cell versus the other. So it's super important for performance because we want our muscles to contract and relax as optimally as possible. So this electrolyte channel basically allows us to have that peak performance. So again, if you guys are already professionals and there's everybody in the league doing everything right, there's small little things that you can do to be even better. So having more optimal muscle contraction is going to help you out.
You can see that word electric or electricity in the first part of electrolytes, like it helps with firing, and you said the contraction and relaxation. It's so important. I think magnesium is more relaxation and potassium is more contraction. If I'm not mistaken, is that correct, Sean?
It depends on what part of the cell and which cell you're in, but it's just they filter inside intracellular fluid that go back and forth.
Well, potassium will pull water into the cell, and sodium pulls it basically into the subcutaneous area. Cool. You got your next one, right? You want to knock it out?
What do I got?
Oh, we already covered carb powder.
We covered carb powder, yeah. So I can go in a little bit on carb powder. There's a few that are out there. So you're looking at the OSE is sugar, right? So there's dextrose, there's maltodextrin, and you can get there's a bunch of different ones, but the dextrose is going to be like a pure sugar.
Yeah.
So if you want something pure sugar, it's really fast. I wouldn't take a whole bunch of it. It's a very simple. Then you have maltodextrin, which is a more complex carb, and then you can have waxy maize, which is more of a starch carb. So different carb powders will do different things for you. The dextrose absorbs almost like a whey protein. So if you want something like ASAP, pre-performance, that dextrose tastes like sugar. It makes everything really sweet. The maltodextrin and the waxy maize are not sweetened. There's not quite as high of a sugar to carbohydrate ratio in those. So if you need a more complex carb, maybe like down the line, or if your protein shake isn't post-workout, you can have some of those other kind of carbohydrates in there. But I definitely like a carbohydrate powder as a supplement if you need those extra carbs pre or post-workout.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a few options.
There's a carbohydrate that I use that is 4 different carbohydrates. 2 are fast, 2 are slow.
That's awesome.
You're getting that immediate, glycogen replenishment, and then a little bit more afterwards as well.
Mm-hmm.
And if you guys want that, so there's a supplement company I use, probably the best in the world, cleanest. Comment below supplement, and I will get you a 15% discount on any supplements that you want. 15% is a big deal. So comment below supplement if that's what you want. Some of my honorable mentions, I had to put these in because when I was thinking of this, beta-alanine is really good for performance. Thiamine is irrelevant, but it's a building block.
Endurance.
Yes, beta-alanine is a building block of carnosine. Carnosine buffers acid in muscles. So if you're needing, essentially endurance for 1 minute to about 4 minutes, beta-alanine really, really helps. Beta-alanine increases anaerobic tuning capacity, power output, VO2 max, and can improve your lean mass at the same time decreasing body fat. So 2 to 5 grams of beta-alanine is a good dose. Beta-alanine will tell you it is you've taken too much because it makes your extremities tingle. You'll have maybe your lips might tingle, your fingers. It feels a little funky. I forget the name, paresthesia or something to that effect. But just taper back a little bit and next time. But beta-alanine is a phenomenal one. It's my honorable mention in terms of performance. carnitine, more specifically acetyl L-carnitine. Anytime you see that word acetyl, A-C-E-T-Y-L, it crosses the blood-brain barrier. And so acetyl L-carnitine essentially shuttles fatty acids into the mitochondria where they can be used for energy. So it's fat burning, and carnitine's in meat, like Sean said earlier with creatine. Carnitine is found in meat. But if you want a good dose, I take anywhere from 3 to 5 grams before workouts, before exercise. It's best on an empty stomach. Acetyl L-carnitine, because it crosses the blood-brain barrier, it can help with memory, it can help with cognition, it can help with a host of things. But like I said, because it shuttles fatty acids into the mitochondria where they can be used for energy, it improves energy production. It's really, really good for that. Another honorable mention is collagen, just because we're constantly jumping and landing and our joints need all the support we can get. And then another honorable mention is BCAAs, which Sean and I have talked a lot about BCAAs in the past. And, branched chain amino acids, there are pros and cons to taking aminos. If you have enough protein in your diet, like Sean and I have talked about on air before, you probably don't need to take aminos. But if there is a placebo effect and you see yourself feeling better and, performing better with them, by all means take it. But if you do take too much aminos, they can deplete your B vitamins. And that has a host of problems in and of itself. An old coach I followed, he would say take 30 to 50 grams of aminos per workout. So I would start my workout, pop 10 caps, after my A series, 10 more caps, after my B series, 10 more caps. And I was burning through bottles, but I was probably also depleting my B vitamins. So when I do take aminos, which right now isn't that often, I think I last took them about 10 months ago, for workout purposes, during workouts, I'll take 10, 15 grams. So those are my honorable mentions: BCAAs, carnitine, collagen, zinc, and beta alanine. Sean, I didn't ask you to prepare that, but do you have any others that kind of just missed the mark for this conversation?
No, not really. I'm pretty streamlined on my supplement list, but I would have touched a little bit on BCAAs if you hadn't. But branched chain amino acids, leucine, isoleucine, valine. Your skeletal muscle specifically is 1/3 leucine. So they say that if you're not getting enough protein, but you're getting BCAAs, the leucine will help repair damaged muscle. Yeah. There's also a fatigue reducing effect of BCAAs, specifically the serotonin crosses the blood-brain barrier. I'm sorry, tryptophan. Which one's first? I always forget which one's first. Tryptophan turns into serotonin. So tryptophan uses the same transport protein as the branched chain amino acids. So when you increase the branched chain amino acids, you're sucking up that transport protein that tryptophan would use to turn into serotonin. Yeah. So you get less serotonin, and the serotonin we know is what causes some of the sleepy, some of the fatigue sets. So BCAA might help reduce fatigue by limiting serotonin production. So that could help you guys out if you want to check that out. Yeah. But I've heard of aminos before a workout. I've seen some research on getting them into your bloodstream faster can help increase protein synthesis throughout your workout. There's some other stuff on that, but I don't personally do a BCAA right now because I take enough protein and I feel like I'm eating pretty well. If you're constantly working your muscles, I would say to complete exhaustion and fatigue, like some of the bodybuilding community is, there might be some benefit to having extra leucine in your diet.
Yeah. And a lot of amino products across the board in terms of the leucine, isoleucine, and valine, we really want about 4 times the amount, right, of leucine.
Yeah, most of them are like a 2-1-1. So you're going to get double the leucine to the other isoleucine and valine. So yeah, I think that's the standard ratio is like a 2-1-1. But you can get isoleucine or leucine or valine. You can get them all by themselves. They're all amino acids that are reproducible. So you can get really fancy if you want. We're gonna make our own pre-workouts. We're gonna make our own BCA confirmations or mixes.
You ever use a greens powder that's espresso flavored? I've done that a lot in my past, and you've stored it gives it a little, because it's usually flavored with stevia, but it gives it a little bit of a sweetness to it. But it's an easy way to get your greens. I don't know why that just popped in my head. But
fun. All right.
Anyway, cool. Final words, Coach?
Get your damn creatine.
Yeah, I think creatine and vitamin D are, if you pick one and I pick one, then those are the two that will really benefit? Because vitamin D just benefits everything.
I would say 16 years older. I mean, you guys are all probably 18, but I wouldn't give anybody creatine under 16 years old.
But they have done some tests where they've shown it to be
It's
safe.
effective. It's
Yeah.
effective. I mean, especially if that 15, 16-year-old is eating tons of meat. So creatine, I usually just like once you get to high school is where I'll start giving you ergogenic aids, but you got to build a good base. You got to have good sleep. You got to have good food. You got to have good nutrition. That's someone who sucks at all those is the first person to ask about supplements. So it's usually like, dude, fix your life, and then we'll talk supplements. But you eat good, sleep good, and you have good training, then I mean, I think high school age is fair enough to start some extra creatine production, especially if you play sports in high school. Like most poor high school kids, man, they suck at eating.
That's what we're going to end on, because you said it perfectly. Like fix your life. So many people want the magic pill, but it's like, well, you didn't eat breakfast. You got 4 hours of sleep last night. Like fix your life first, and then we'll supplements. That's what we should have started with. What we should have named this episode: "Fix Your Life," and then watch this episode.
Fix your life, then supplement.
Yeah.
T-shirts. Fix your life.
All right, Coach. Thank you. I appreciate your time. Thanks for all you add to the show, and everybody watching. We'll see you next time.
All righty, guys. See ya.